All right, welcome back to the PerformPodcast. Today is again another special episode, I reckon, especially from the sense of someone that's been through Perform, has been under us, has gone through a pretty unique journey. Obviously, you would have listened to Jax the other day and what he's been through and the ups and downs and everything like that. And I think there's a pretty common theme happening with all of the athletes that come through and obviously work to those higher levels, that it's not all sunshine and rainbows throughout the whole journey. But today we obviously have Connor O'Sullivan on. Connor's obviously had a good stint with the Irish Sevens. He's a WA junior. And we're going to dig into a bit of his journey, what he's done, what it was like going through the Sevens system, and a few other bits and pieces along the journey. But I thought I'd just first point out that the most important part from an S&C's perspective is when an athlete comes back from their journey overseas, they bring back kit. So if you're noticing today, if you're watching the video, I am wearing an Irish Sevens shirt, which again, well done to Connor. And for any other athlete listening, if you go anywhere, if you get any kit, that is the most important thing. We've got a full bag sitting there, which we'll definitely take full advantage of. But welcome, Connor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk about it all.
So what we're going to do, so I popped up on my stories last night, a bit of a Q&A, and absolutely no surprise. He's got, let's just say, rinsed by the Irish boys
Yeah.
with the questions coming in. But we got a few goodies. So I thought I'd just start off with a few questions and then we'll finish the pod with a few questions.
Sure.
We'll start with some serious and not so serious ones. I want to kick it off with the first one. Where is it? From Z Wardy 8.
Yeah, Zach Ward.
Is he the shortest player to play on the World Series?
I'd be close, but I think Billy Dardis has me tipped there.
Did you just get the measuring tapes out?
Yeah, I think I've got 2 centimeters on him, so that's he can take that medal. I'll send it to him.
What else we got here? We'll go. Actually, I want to go with the first one from Colin. Actually, what does a day of eating look like? And I would like to know, what's a day of eating look like compared to your brother as well?
Compared to my brother as well. I guess it would change like so much depending on what kind of phase we're in.
Yeah.
So like when you're prepping for a tournament or like right before a tournament, it changes compared to when you're in the middle of like a training block.
Yeah.
Compared to when you're doing nothing, you're in a recovery mode.
Mm-hmm.
It's normally pretty consistent. It's all that really changes is just the amount. Like you're trying to sit the same macros. Like you're trying to hit a lot of carbs, a lot of protein.
So you guys obviously have a dietitian with the Sevens program.
Yep.
What is a normal? And again, this isn't like copy and paste. There's obviously macros, numbers, preference, etc. But like, what does a normal day look like?
It's pretty individualistic, but we get like for me, it would be wake up, have a smoothie, have protein, something digestible because you're going to run and exercise early in the morning.
Yep.
And then you kind of come in, you'd have your coffee and your caffeine to get yourself ready to go. You get through your first block of training, and then you'd be supplied with lunch after a training session in a gym. So they'd give it to us. It's like kind of like a buffet. There'd be a heap of protein there, a heap of carbs. You kind of pick and choose again what you'd want, and that would be based on where you are in your training block. Most lads are pretty consistent. Some of the bigger lads are trying to lose a few kegs. Some of the small lads are trying to bulk up. I kind of fit in the middle, being a bigger lad on a smaller statute. So I kind of got to eat whatever I wanted. And
a bit more muscle than the average human being.
Yeah. So I was getting told to put on a bit of fat, which is always nice.
You're too lean.
Yeah,
damn it.
Yeah. So that actually means I can eat whatever I want, which is good.
How good.
But no, it's actually pretty flexible. So I think like with your diet, being happy with it is so important. Like if you don't like how you're eating, you won't maintain it. Yeah,
so they'll give you more like a guidelines kind of set up, and you guys obviously, I guess if you've been in that system long enough and you've been a professional athlete or aspiring to be a professional athlete, you obviously worked on your nutrition to some degree.
You're also working so hard that you don't want to take away from it by eating, or at least that was my mindset. Like it's the same with drinking, but it's like you don't want to go out and eat a lot of food because you've been working so hard, and sometimes you do need to go out and eat a lot of food because you've been working so hard to put on some muscle. You don't want to sell yourself short by not eating enough. Yeah. And so that's like the mindset that you kind of bring in. You're not going to sell yourself short by messing up your diet when you've been doing all that hard work, and then you don't want to come in on Monday having gained a few kilos over the last few weeks, and suddenly you can't keep up with the fitness tests and stuff. Yeah. Or you're a little bit slower. Yeah. Just because you got lazy on your food, so it kind of just comes instinctively. Yeah. Okay. So you'd learn the hard way if you didn't. A little bit. Yeah.
All right. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna just again similar to like Jack's podcast, even Benny's as well. Like we're just gonna go through a bit of like a timeline. Same thing. There's a couple different goals. Like I want to learn from you. I'm going to be a bit selfish and ask from an S&C perspective. But like I want to learn about the 7 Series and how it was run and how you guys were able to travel and perform week to week and things like that. So I think there'll be a lot of, I feel like, obviously performance information you better pass on from what you've done and how you've got there.
Yep.
And then you've even got your own little hurdles along the way, which are pretty cool to overcome and get yourself to where you are. So we'll go through where you started. We'll talk about school, obviously the ACL, the rehab, and then all the way through the Ireland, and then back to where you are now. So do you want to just give us a rundown of the same thing? Where'd you start your juniors? Where'd you start? And then like we'll roll it from there.
So I can give a quick recap on that. So I was a Soaks junior. My dad brought me down. I think it was under 8s, and my brother was under 10s. Got into playing with some of the lads who are now my best mates and stuff down at Soaks. So went all the way through to, I think it was under 16s, and then you get brought out because you kind of have to play PSA, which is on at the same time. I was fortunate enough that I was actually able to play second grade at COP because I had a similar coach. So you work your way through PSA, which is year 10, 11 and 12. So again, fortunate enough that I was playing first grade all the way through there. Won the competition 3 times, which is obviously nice and a really cool, nice core memory of mine. Never lost a game for Scotch, which is
Jesus, must be nice.
It's always a nice little one to have in the over a few people who I see these days.
It wasn't due to the 7 line breaks a game.
I think having Lockie Phillips helped on that one as well. He scored a good few tries, but and then finished my PSA career. Obviously, was very happy with it, and went to. So it's just a quick recap, but then went to uni mainly because my brother was there. Mm-hmm. My parents were involved there. My cousin was playing there. Mm-hmm. So played 1 year, a little bit of Colts, but then reasonably quickly got brought into the first grade team as a flanker. Mm-hmm. Around that time, I was okay, but I probably hadn't had a breakthrough. No one probably was looking at me a huge amount. They just knew I had good basic skills. I was quite strong, but I wasn't stand out. It was probably the following year I had a good season.
What year was this?
2020. Yeah, so I had a very good season. I kind of came into my own as a player, started beating people and playing with more confidence. Mm-hmm. Won the PG Hampshire that year. So for those who might not be based in WA, that's like an award for the player who's voted to be the best in Western Australia. So based on the referees, it doesn't mean you are the best player or anything, but it's obviously a nice award and a good recognition of having a good season. Yeah. And then 2021, I like to think I was carrying on with that quite well. I was moving forward, starting to look for some more opportunities, and my mind started to develop a little bit, change a little bit. And then in the final game against Cottesloe in the semi-final, I blew my ACL, and that for a number of athletes was a big turning point of mine. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know if you wanted to
cool.
that. I know we'll talk about that later. So
no, again, it kind of gives a nice time. And then obviously from there you roll into the Irish setup as well. Obviously, I want to go into a bit more like PSA rugby. Mm-hmm. So obviously, one thing in WA at the moment, I feel like it's, again, I'm not up to date, I'm not over there, but like Queensland rugby, New South Wales rugby, like I feel like it's a little bit similar, but you seem to have a big clash with PSA rugby and club rugby. Yeah. What was, because obviously you said like you weren't allowed to play for club, weren't meant to be able to play for club rugby. Yeah. What was that like? What was that?
Yeah, it's still continuing now. It is a big issue. Like I was coaching before I left to Dublin, coaching the Scotch College first team, and you'd have lads there who weren't able to play or stay affiliated with the club. They'd have to come and play school, which that in itself is an issue. I think school rugby is very important for developing players, and playing rugby at school is very important for developing young men in general. Mm-hmm. But they lose a tie with the club. That kind of severs that, especially if they haven't been involved since they were young. They might have only recently started playing under 14s, under 15s, and then suddenly they're forced to play for their school, and they lose an affiliation to club rugby. Yep. And then by the time they finish, they graduate, they're now 18, 19. Often they don't have a clear pathway back, especially with the Colt system struggling with a lack of teams and a lack of numbers. So obviously they then get poached. There's so much competition in Australia in terms of sport. You've got AFL, you've got obviously lots of soccer going on, you've got your social sports, you've now got NRL, which is growing bigger and bigger here, that's starting to poach players. So they kind of finish school and they get poached rather than maintaining that connection since juniors all the way through. There's no clear-cut answer because someone kind of has to bend out the way.
Yeah, because I feel like for us, we obviously don't have the pool. Like Queensland, New South Wales have that massive pool of players, so we can kind of divide it and they're both going to get developed. Like, is there a strategy we can think of that's going to, like, how do we play both? How do we...
just need to make sure you affiliate like the lads playing in
build those
PSA
relationships
rugby and maintain a relationship with them and have them having a clear pathway. There were a few years where it was done very well. Uni did it for a while. UWA did it for a while, like 2017, 2016, 2018. They were very good there. I think it moved a bit from PSA to now having a stronger tie with Soaks. It just needs one club or two clubs or three clubs need to make sure they're stepping up and helping facilitate those boys into Colts rugby. One of the issues with that, again, is it can be such a jump to Colts from schoolboy level. So that can sometimes, if you've got 17-year-olds graduating, going up, because Colts is now under 21s.
Yeah, it's jumped so high now.
You've got lads who are very good players playing that Colts team, or very big players playing in that Colts team, and they can be going for 17-year-olds because there's no under-18s competition, or not a very strong under-18s competition. So I don't pretend to have all the answers. I'm probably just identifying problems here more than anything that I'm sure people in Rugby WA already know, and they're going, thanks for that, we're trying to work on it. So
it's just an interesting dynamic, and obviously for someone that's been through it and obviously been successful through that system. Again, we're affiliated with Trinity, and we see the same thing where there's that challenge between the two. But I guess that's the big thing in terms of development in WA.
Yeah.
It's like we've got a group. We don't have a big group, but how do we look after the group that we've got? Yeah. Is big. And
I think tying in with like university is important as well. It's a big one in when you look in Ireland as well. Like a lot of their schools will tie in with their clubs and with their universities. Like people go and play for the university and then they're released to play for their clubs.
So how does the Irish system work? What's the
they have such depth there. Like so many teams. Even within like Leinster is obviously the biggest rugby province. They have so many teams that then that allows them to leave school and have their choice of teams to play for, as opposed to here we're much more limited. But a lot of them will then leave school. A number will play for their university, like Trinity or Dublin Uni, and then if they're not being selected there, they'll play for one of the other tens of clubs that they can choose from within a stone's throw of their house most of the time.
Yeah, okay. So it's just there's a bigger pool.
There's a much bigger pool. Yeah. But a lot more investment as well, and a lot more grades, a lot more choices to play down the grades. Like you'll have like 1A, 1B, and then it goes 2A, 2B, 2C. That was something when I rocked up, I was like, wow, it goes deep and deeper and deeper. And that lower level doesn't mean it is a low level. It's still high quality.
So that East Coast, like 4th grade, 5th grade, like it's digging deep and deep.
So it kind of allows a much more gradual entrance for these younger guys to start building their way up.
True.
As opposed to coming in here. Even 2nd grade, you've got some great players playing 2nd grade here. And even in 3rd grade, there's not much teams there. They start struggling for numbers and stuff. So you're having, 17-year-old kids need to play 80 minutes.
Yeah, and then go up and then play 40 minutes for Prems, and then and then play 20 minutes for Prems.
And then why are they falling apart at 21 and maybe not that keen? It's like, well, you're running them ragged here. They should be kind of scrapping to get 40 minutes in the lower grade and then working their way in. But again, identifying problems, not giving solutions.
Yeah, 100%. So let's go. So you've gone through PSA. We'll come back to obviously you've got a bit of an idea around the PSA and how we can. Yeah. We'll talk about the 7 side of things, but just continue your journey along. You finished school. You've obviously then moved on to 1st grade. So you went to UWA. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. How old were you when you first played?
I would have been 18.
18. You playing 2nd grade, 1st grade?
No, straight in 1st grade.
1st grade.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So I came in as a Colt technically. Yep. I think I played one or two games of Colts. Yep. And then benched for ones down in Basie. Came off the bench against
I didn't know that.
Against Basie. A couple good line breaks, I think, in that game. And everyone was like, and then, but mainly I was just making tackles, and then they needed a flanker, so I kind of just slotted in. It was under Buddha. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep. Remember the name.
The Spencers. He was a good coach. He brought me in. But again, I wasn't doing anything special. I was just excited to be there. Yeah. My first year, they all seemed massive and such good rugby players at the time when you're kind of an 18-year-old coming in. Yep. And then you kind of put them off their pedestal a little bit as you start to compete with them. Yep. Which is always a nice journey. So yeah, they went from there, and then the next year I was kind of a more prominent starting flanker. Yep. I knew where I would be. What was the difference between that year and like you personally as a player? Was there anything that you worked on? Obviously physically. Yeah, I think pretty cool. IQ wise, tactics wise, like was that just coming natural to you? Was it like where was the growth coming from? I think I just started beating a few more players, like in a one-on-one situation. Like is that a confidence thing? I think confidence is probably the biggest. Like you start demanding the ball a little bit more. Yeah. And then as you progress, you kind of start realizing I can do this better and better. Yeah. Because I was obviously a bit of a unique player in the sense that like I was a back rower who kind of was there without it, but playing more like a Lucy, playing it out in the centres, kind of running around, like not hitting too many breakdowns. Made a lot of tackles, but I wasn't making too many turnovers
Ruck attendance
at the time. Yeah, so I was kind of like mainly out there for kind of to attack and then to work hard in defence. Rather than I wasn't like a Carlo Tizano who was just everywhere, chopping legs, turning turnovers, like a flanker through and through. I probably fell away.
Yeah, right.
As much to the hatred of Alex Steiker, who wanted a true blue 7 and was stuck with me. But again, that was probably what led to me pushing towards 7s.
Yeah,
I think people kind of realised that. They were like, "Wow, he's doing really well, but he's not a flanker. Like, he's not big. He's not doing what a flanker does."
Yeah.
So that kind of led towards me when I put my head up to look around.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah.
That's why I shifted towards 7s rugby.
Yeah.
Opposed to looking for a professional contract in 15s.
So we can kind of blend towards that because obviously, like you've already said, you went through the journey. You've built through the Premier grade. I was there with you guys on that day, and the Cottesloe foreshore, and things didn't go our way. What actually, I vividly remember, but don't like. I feel like you did it, and then you got up and you tried to make that last play.
Yeah. So I remember it far too well. We,
obviously remember.
Yeah, we were down by a try, so it'd been a very long game.
A couple points or something. Yeah.
It would have been 3 or 4 points. So it was the very last play. I'd had a reasonably good game. My brother was out there. He'd been playing well. We'd been battering away. We probably deserved to be up, but Cott they still are a very good team, especially at winning finals. They are at the time, I think they were going for their 3-peat.
I mean, that might have been the second one. Yeah,
maybe the second one. But they knew how to win finals games, and so when the clock ticked over to 80, they were up. We had the ball. Ball moved to me. Looked up at a mate of mine, Roy Edwards, who'd gone through a couple of times that game. Thought I could go through him again, and then before I'd even touched him, just sidestepped and my right knee went. Felt it go straight away. I'd had a little bit of problems with it already. Hadn't had surgery on it before. So I dropped to the ground, placed the ball back. The thing went to the edge. I rolled out to the wing, stood up, and I was like, okay, I'm cooked here. Ball came out to our wing, and I was like, mate, whatever you do, just carry it. Do not pass me the ball. So naturally, he just passes it straight to me. So with no right knee, I did about 4 left foot steps.
Just round in circles.
To go through, and then went down into touch, barreled into touch. And then that was the game. Didn't know what I'd done to the knee at the time, but knew it was pretty bad. And then that kind of progressed my mindset. So I remember finishing that game and kind of going away, being told my ACL was done. Well, I guess to give it context, like I never believed I wanted to be a professional player. Coming through school, I knew I was good, especially as I came into uni. I knew I was a good player, but it wasn't my intention to go pro. I remember having conversations with my dad when I was 17, 18. Like rugby was always part of the journey. It wasn't the destination. It was your way to travel. It was your way to make mates. It was your way to get paid, to go to uni, and have a bit of fun along the way. Because otherwise, you're just working. And that was always my goal. I wanted to use rugby to travel. I wanted to use rugby to get around and make friends wherever I go. But then I kind of did my knee, and I looked at myself in the mirror a bit and went, I haven't really done anything, and my story is being moulded into one that you just hear from everybody, which is I could have been great, I could have made it, I did my knee, which really just means I gave up. Because when you're 21 and you do your knee, well, you've only done it once, and I think if you want proof of that, just look at Jack Hardy. You can always come back. So I looked at myself in the mirror a bit and went, I don't want this to be my whole story. I did my knee and I just stayed. I played a bit of first grade. Everyone was like, oh, he could have been great, but he hurt his knee. So I wanted to pursue something. Didn't know what that was at the time. And then I kind of got, sorry, I was moving the mic a bit. And then I started looking outside of WA. Didn't have any opportunities here. So I have an Irish passport. Which helps. I reached out to a friend of a friend who's Kyle Godwin. He was a Wallaby, for those who don't know him. And we went out to coffee. He said he'd be happy to introduce me to Andy Friend, who I didn't know, I hadn't met, and who's at the time was involved with coaching Connacht. And he said they didn't have a role for me, but liked the look of a few of my clips and stuff, and would be happy to refer me on to the 7s. That then went through David Nusafora and down the rungs there until they reached out and offered me a trial there. But yeah, that was a big mindset shift for me. It was like, all right, well, I want to prove what I can do. You get told so much, I think, in WA, and we've already touched on it. And I know that Carlo has talked about it being obviously the Wallaby starting flanker now, and I know Jack has talked about it as well. You get told that WA rugby isn't isn't enough. It's so small. You tell anyone it's not compared to Shoot Shield, or it's not comparable to the Queensland comps. And so you almost get in your own head. You're like, okay, maybe I am just a big fish in a really small pond. Could I hold a candle to a rugby nation, a proper rugby nation like Ireland? So that's kind of what I wanted to figure out, and gave me a good inspiration to go over there.
I obviously didn't know that part of it in terms of that was a switch for you. Because in my head, I was like, obviously the way you're playing, how hard you're playing, how much you're dedicated to the game. Like, it looks like you always want to be a professional. But that's quite interesting that was your switch to then kind of push yourself. Because then that obviously puts us in that position where you've done your ACL, you've obviously had all these thoughts and this perspective shift. And now, what happens now in terms of your rehab? Coming back from there, because obviously from what I can remember, it was obviously the goal initially, pretty much I think it was nearly straight after, was Irish Sevens.
It was a bit later. It was definitely a few months, Like I went, so the timeline, this is the end of 2021. Yep. I did it in September. I had to go to, I wasn't in lining that up until kind of March. Yeah. Because that's when I started talking. So I had the whole Christmas to get through, and that's kind of like when the mind shifted. Obviously, there's no rugby on.
You're sitting down a bit more.
You're sitting down a lot more. There's not much to watch. So that's where you're kind of staring at a wall, going like, "What do I want to get out of this? Am I just coming back so that I can come back?" And I think Jack touched on his talk where it's like you need a why, and if your why is just to get back to being an average Joe, that's absolutely fine. But it's very hard to push yourself to train at a very high level and bring yourself back at a high level, like I was. So for context, I was straight into Perform. Sorry for anyone listening, but I was straight into Perform after doing my knee with the goal of basically putting some real work into becoming, a proper athlete, not just a guy who's all right running with the ball, and which is exactly what I did. Like by the time I finished my time here, like my gym stats, my running stats, my strength, I could call myself an athlete. I think I could hold my own with a lot of players, which is what I was going to have to do, which I knew when I went away. At the time, I didn't know what that would be, and then as time progressed, I knew I was looking more and more like a sevens, and luckily enough, I got into that pathway to the highest level because there isn't a great pathway through seven, so you kind of do get parachuted in at the top. So I had to be able to compete with those guys, those absolute freaks who are out there, which again took time when I got there, but Perform set me up to do that.
Yeah, cool. Cheeky plug.
Yeah, there you go.
But what was that? Because it makes a bit of sense to me. Where it's like, what was that environment like competing against Jack? Because that's what I said on the podcast with him. Is like, all I can remember is you used to like, the only issue was holding you back. Yeah. It wasn't pushing you forward. Yeah. So like, for you to, what was that environment like, having that competitive nature against Jack? You're in here day after day. Yeah. You're in the gym together. You're on the field together, and then it's obviously a bigger step up in terms of the professional environment. Yeah. But like then going to the Irish Sevens where you're competing. Yeah. And you're around a group that are like, I'm going to beat you today. Like, no, I'm going to beat you today. Yeah. It's like, what was that like?
Yeah, it's tricky. It was a change because I'd never really had that where someone's like pushing you in the gym as much. It's always been like as part of a team, and you're all trying to get better together. But suddenly you're in a gym environment where like you're just pushing each other for the sake of getting better as individuals rather than the whole team getting better. Yep. If that makes sense. But like it was so necessary for me in the way that I operate, and I think a lot of people can operate, do operate athletes anyway who aren't individual athletes, who are team athletes. They need a guy next to them to push them. So like without that, I don't think I would have been able to push myself nearly as hard. Like when you're looking over and he's doing extras, you have to do them. If he goes to bed early, you can go to bed early. But if anyone who knows Jack Hardy, he never went to bed early. He's always the first one up in there and the last one to leave. So
is he near half an hour early doing some arms or something like that?
So he's always a good motivator to have him around. And I think Byron was around, and a few other lads were coming in and out and stuff. So they were big motivators because they're also such good players in and of themselves. They deserve such a good line, and they've all done so well, overcoming their own hurdles. And then obviously when you get away, that competition starts again. And sevens is such a unique one because it can be so individualistic in some aspects. And obviously we'll go into fitting in with the team and stuff when I get there. But you have to be able to compete. Like I think it's a big thing in a professional setup or any real high level sporting. If you can't play, you can't fit in. Like it's very difficult to make your way into a team until you're doing well. So you need to be able to kind of enter, and you can't really play well until you're doing well with the team. So it's a bit of a chicken and the egg scenario. Yeah. So going in there, having done all the competition here, meant that I was in a much better position to compete.
Yeah. Do you find it's that where it's like it's not just competing on the field? There's little competitions, and you've got to just like, is that like a core principle? Is that like if we're giving advice back to the younger athlete,
Yeah.
Like, what kind of perspective shift could you give, or what kind of like around competing?
Yeah, I think the biggest one would be probably just focus on yourself more than anyone else. There's no point in looking into the lane to your left and your right sometimes and trying to, because like I think people often get so fixated on the guy who's just ahead of them, whether it's in a jersey or in the squad or whatever.
Yeah, it's big.
They kind of lose focus on what they're good at, and they're like, oh, I need to get better at certain things. I remember having a talk with a coach in Ireland about what I needed to focus on. This is one of the lads who actually works with the women's teams, and he was like, just do what you do well, because you're not going to get picked. So this was about a conversation about getting balls back off the kickoff, which is a really important part of sevens. It's one of the most. If you can win every kickoff, you pretty much win the game because you get so much of the ball. And I obviously wasn't a huge strength of mine. I'm not that tall. So
established in the first question.
I'm only 6'3", so that's tough.
183.
Yeah. So anyway, I remember talking to him, and he was like, just do what you're good at. There's no point in trying to compete with these guys. That doesn't mean don't work on it and don't be an option, but focus on what you're going to be the best at and be the best at that. Don't try and compete with them in something you're probably not going to win, because you're not going to get selected by being the second best in that. You are going to get selected by being the best in what you do. Yeah.
So establishing your strengths and leaning into those that's big.
And that helps with competition as well, because you start going into it when you come in and you've got your mates on either side, and suddenly you're focusing more on yourself, and you're just trying to get better. You're not trying to. There's no party that wants to pull them down, and you're just elevating the whole team. If you can try and cultivate that mindset, which is obviously something it's hard to do.
It's huge. I'm actually with a couple of my clients, which would be good for them to hear this, are going through that phase where like there's representative stuff going on, and there's bits and pieces, and people getting pushed down, people getting pushed up, and you can get quite overwhelmed, and then you get disheartened. Yeah. So then your attitude changes in that environment. So that's like really good advice, I think, for the younger athletes looking up. So then, let's run through your Irish journey. So let's say we finished rehab. You played a couple games, or did you go straight away?
No, I hadn't finished rehab.
Oh, you were sent early. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I can take
go for it. Yeah.
So I was about 7 months in, so it was end of June, July.
Yeah, okay. Is that just after the testing?
So I did a bunch of testing here with the West Coast guys. So like I'm actually not sure what the name, where you kick and pull.
Oh, the kinetic.
Kinetic testing. Yeah. So I did that. They said, you're strong. I don't think strength was ever my massive issue. It was more just like, would it hold up under the pressure? So I went over there to finish my rehab. I think if I had my time again, I would have been less rushed. I think, like I said, that mindset change was like, I have to go now because I don't want this to be my story, so I need something to change. I need to get into that environment ASAP. Yeah. I think that meant I got over there slightly disbalanced, like slightly out of equilibrium. If I had my time again, I think I would have finished my rehab here, tried to get a couple games in, and then gone and entered as kind of a more complete athlete.
Did you, as in like you feel like you had extra pressure? Did you feel like you would?
I just felt maybe I wasn't back to form.
Yeah, okay.
I think you kind of get told it's 9 months from ACL, maybe 12, and you're like, all right, so I'm going to hit 9 months and be back to normal. And then you get back to 9 months and you're like, I keep going off my left foot and not going off my right, or like my pass isn't what it used to be because I've been running so much and I haven't been doing that. And I have not beaten athletes. I'm not as confident to kind of drive my knee into somebody as I maybe once was, or hit a breakdown, or if someone starts rolling me at a breakdown, I'm going with them instead of trying to fight and stay in my position. Basic things like that. Which meant I got out of there, I was a little out of sync, and I had no way of knowing that I would feel that way. So I'm probably looking back on, I would have completely finished my rehab here. I was in such a good setup here. Although, the other side of the coin meant I went in there with a few months of my rehab left, and I got straight into the fitness side of it. That's such a big part of sevens for anyone who's not watching. Like, it's almost impossible to replicate outside of the system because you just can't work yourself that hard. You can't motivate yourself to work that hard without someone on your back and without a clear goal in front of you. So I meant that I got a few good months over there of being just put kind of in a hurt locker on the bike and running. Physio got me back pretty quickly. Lads were going off to the World Cup, and then they had a break, the Irish lads. So they went to the World Cup in Cape Town, and then they had a break. I worked the whole way through that, just in the gym, and then I played a few games for Lansdowne. So that's a rugby club that was over there. So I played, I think, 8 games for them ticking over the season, so not a huge amount, but that was a good way for me to kind of get back into it and build my confidence back. Because a lot of lads, obviously, they didn't know my story when I got there. They don't know if you're any use, so they're kind of keen to watch you, and you're obviously keen to get back into it. It's very hard to build that confidence. So that was probably my first year coming back into the program, was then tossing up between playing with Lansdowne Rugby Club and pushing at Irish Sevens. Which was, again, a split of itself. It's quite hard. Something I probably would have done separately if I had my time again, I would have gone back, focused on getting back into by playing a season, possibly at 15s, and then shifted.
Yep.
And being like, all right, mid-season we'll push and we'll change our focus now that I'm back as a player.
Mm-hmm. What's the difference? Like, because obviously, I'm assuming did you do both training throughout the week? Like,
yeah. So
is it a big juggle to try and do both? Is big differences? Like,
yeah. So like, you run just so much with the sevens, like so much on-field training, and it's great fun because most of your training is just like kind of 7-on-7.
Just playing rugby.
Kick a ball, here you go, have a crack, and it's kind of just scrag instead of full contact.
Yeah.
So that's really fun, but there's just so many meters, and then you'd go into 15s training. Like I would be going straight to that night where I'd just be doing, obviously standing out of a lot of the running, a little bit of the contact, and you just work on all those minute skills that are so different.
Yeah.
There's no, like, you have to stay so square. It's about manipulating players in a small amount of space, and then suddenly you go back into training where it's like, there's 30 meters. Like you have to be making sure you throw good passes and taking people on and stuff, and not getting beaten. There's much less structure, so that was difficult.
Yeah.
But again, a big learning curve for me, and just meant I got to play a lot of footy, which is what I wanted to do, especially coming back from my knee. So that year was kind of a big development year for me, between playing Lansdowne and with the sevens, and building my confidence back and putting myself in a position to kind of push for the next year.
Yeah. So you again, it's pretty full on in terms of, like, it's not a normal rehab journey.
No.
You've obviously had that, but then so you've come back, and then you've had a bit of a development year, would you say, in terms of like getting back into it, getting your rhythm back? Yeah. And then what's happening the year after that?
So I finished my development year off with the World Series debut, which was in Toulouse in France and in London, which was great. It was fantastic to get that debut because you're obviously watching those guys. You've got them on, like I said, with like first grade in WA, you've got them on a pedestal. They're so good. Yeah. You're kind of training against them, but again, it's scrag. It's not full games. Everyone's tired. It's not the same mindset. So then suddenly you play on the World Series and, you do okay. You do fine, and that confidence starts to grow a little bit. Yep. He's like, okay, I can hold my own to these guys. When they are running full tilt, I can stop them, and when the pass is needed, I can throw it. Mm-hmm. So you build that confidence back, and then we got the break. I tore my rec fem at the very end of that in a small tour, sevens tour to Scotland, which was a pain because I missed a couple of the Rugby Europe tours where I would have been able to keep developing that. Yep. But I got the offer to come back for another year, so I ran home for a few months, did a little bit of study, got a semester done, which was a nice break, a little bit of extra time at home. Yep. And then now I went back with the mindset I was in a much better place. I was feeling pretty good. So then I got
a little short pre-season in there.
I got a good pre-season in. What was it, 5 weeks?
Lots of running.
Yeah.
So lots of you just stepping me.
I was in with performance.
That was a lot of
me v Isaac. Wow, that was a confidence builder.
Let you have that one.
Breaking Isaac. Yeah, he was like, I would have made that. I would have made that.
Damn it, I missed. Damn sevens. I'm a 15s guy.
And then there's Byron there as well.
Yeah. And then brings it back to reality.
He was pushing my confidence back down by kicking the crap out of me.
Bit of a balance between the two.
But no, that was building my kind of fitness back up after a little bit of off season and a mental break, and then really keen to push back in. Went back with obviously the goal shifted of the entire squad was shifted to just making that Olympic team. Yeah. So the nature of the sevens team is it's a really close group. They've been together for I think 8 years. A huge majority of them. Obviously, some have come in a bit later as it progressed, but the core group had been there a long time. They brought Irish sevens up from practically nothing, playing European comps against basically no one, and then pulled them all the way up until the World Series until they made the Tokyo Olympics. Yeah, and that was the same group. Generally, that was there now. Yeah. So these guys were all keen to make another Olympics. That was their sole goal, and this was the year to do it. So coming back, trying to crack that team was obviously quite tricky.
That's a challenge, yeah.
Yeah, so I knew I needed to be really fit and really strong and ready to go. So that's why I did a big pre-season here while I was studying. Yep. And then came back in and,
kind of built from there?
Wow, kind of. Had my own little hurdle there.
So, run us through that, because when you because when was that? I think you were just about to play.
October, yeah. So I was pushing for selection for the Dubai and Cape Town Sevens. Yeah. Whether or not I would have been selected, I'm not sure.
So, October, sorry. So that's the start of the series?
Yeah, the series starts November,
Yeah, okay. And you had a couple of seizures?
Yeah, so there's like a trip. Sorry, there's for people listening, there's a fly here, or a bee. It's getting me.
It's attacking you.
Yeah. There's a trip to Spain, so it was the week of that. We go to a place called Elche. It's not a World Series or anything. It's just like a development with the team. So I was selected for that. So that would have been a really good opportunity to then push, play well, show that I've gained some fitness and some strength, and go to then Dubai and Cape Town. That was obviously my goal. Like any season, starting in the team, once you're in that jersey, it's a lot easier to hold it than it is to get it back. Yeah. So that was obviously my goal. Whether or not I would have got it, I'm not sure. it's so competitive in there and so tight, and they do like changing it around, especially in those lads around the fringes.
Yeah.
But it didn't go out that way. I had an epileptic fit in October, so yeah, kind of just collapsed around. Never happened to me before. It was pretty spooky. Thought I was all right from it. Just didn't know what had happened. Just collapsed to the ground, split my head open pretty bad.
Jeez. So you lost consciousness and
it was the camera turned off for a while and then turned back on.
Yeah, okay.
Instinct, didn't know where I was. I remember the IKEA staff came up to me. I was walking through IKEA, as you do. The IKEA staff came up to me and they were like, "Where are you? Do you know where you are?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm at UWA." And they were like, what is UWA? Do you know what state you're in? Like, yeah, I'm in Perth. And they're like, nope. And I was like, I'm just not going to say anything. Yeah. My brain wasn't really working. So I went the Ambo to the hospital and was there for a week and had another one when I got to hospital. So I was just chilling out and then had another fit and then woke up in the morning. Mm-hmm. The lads were all really good. I just moved house there to move in with all the boys and they were all very kind. They knew I was away from home, so they took care of me. I remember the captain, Harry McNulty, coming in. Real nice guy. Yeah. So he was first thing to wake up to. I'd just had the fit, woken up in a new room, kind of changed and see Harry standing there, being like, "Hey mate, how you going?"
Like, where am I? Still
pretty rattled. But it was very nice. It made me feel at home. And then again, I guess that was kind of another mindset shift for me. I was obviously so disappointed. I knew I wouldn't be going to Elche. I knew because of that I had no chance of making the World Series team to Dubai. Yeah. So my mindset was kind of, I have to decide again what I want to do. Do I want to pull the pin on this and just go if I'm not going to make it, or do I want to double down and really push to make some more tours this season and hopefully make the Olympic team? So I went with the latter. I wanted to just give it my all. I was in October there. Season was going to end in end of August. That's when the Olympics was. So I was like, let's just push for this and make it as hard as I can. So I kind of threw myself with fitness. Had the exact same scenario where here it was after my ACL. I think it was you and Crystal were holding me back, and then I had Orla. She was making sure I wouldn't run too early and stuff. They were obviously worried. It was I thought I'd gained so much mental resilience from an ACL, and this was a whole new thing because it's not your body that's let you down, it's your mind. And you don't know. Like, sometimes when you do an injury, you're kind of like, I know what my limbs are. I can keep pushing them until they grow, but sometimes with your brain, you're like, it's scary. You don't know what's wrong.
Yeah. Even the way you're talking about it now, it's obviously like, that's scary. Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. And also like your mindset to then, I feel like it's, again, similar to Jack, where it's like your mindset straight away goes to, all right, what's next? Yeah. It's like, it's not the normal human being.
I guess it was like, I can't ponder on this. Like, I'm not going to gain anything by sitting around just feeling sorry for myself. So I need to make a decision one way or the other. I'm either done and I go home, fine, or if I'm staying here, I want to stay here for a reason. So then I got back into it. I worked really hard. I pushed the physios. They were holding me back and going, we can't go back into running. And I was kind of sitting there going, why not? And they were like, we don't have any tests for this. And I was like, well, then you have no reason to hold me back. So I think with hamstrings and knees and shoulders, they can be like, yeah, look, you can't press this much. We can't let you run. And I was like, well, my brain's fine.
From a liability standpoint, I think they're like, nah, we can't do anything.
They ran me into a consultant. He was like, we don't know that much about the brain. Yeah. We'll put you on some drugs, which were no fun. Yeah. Big mood changes and stuff. So I had to deal with that. When obviously you're away from home, you're away from all your close mates, you're kind of still building relationships with people. That was tough. Yeah. I had to isolate myself a bit because of like big mood swings and things like that, which I think I kept quiet from a lot of the boys over there.
Especially for you, you're very, very easygoing, very happy, very cruisy person.
I definitely didn't feel like that for a few months there.
I don't think I've ever seen you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that'd be very weird, especially for them to see, and then especially for you.
Yeah, I think they recognised that, and they gave me a bit of space because like I said, I just moved in with the lads, and they were all really good and helpful. But I just wanted to move through it, and I became such a different person during that period, which I wasn't massively happy with. But again, I didn't really have a choice. I just had a goal which I wanted to achieve. But that was tough. It was more the side effects of the drugs that got me than the actual seizures themselves. Yeah. And then I didn't get selected for Dubai and Cape Town, which was obviously disappointing. But I did achieve my goal, which was to go to Dubai. So they send a second team. Yep. Whether or not I'd be playing in that was a question mark at early doors, like in October. Yep. And I basically set my goal. If I want to go and play, I need to play. So I made that tour. I did reasonably well. We lost in the semi-final, which was a pain, to Germany. But we did okay as a team. I think we all played well. And then that moved on. And then the next one after Cape Town was Perth. And then so that was obviously another shift for me where I was this is a really nice goal. I wanted to make the first one because I wanted to be in that jersey and someone have to take it off me because, again, it's a lot easier to hold a jersey than it is to get one. Didn't get that, didn't achieve that. Partly out of my heavily out of my own control, but then the next one was, all right, I obviously want to come to my hometown to play. Coach knows where I'm from. It's probably a good opportunity to get picked here, and if I do well here, then again I get to hold my jersey instead of have to pick it up. That was a lot of fun. I know you were there, and
that was unreal.
So playing in front of my home crowd was pretty cool. I felt like I developed a lot while I was here because I actually got given some more minutes, and we were playing for a lot. Didn't get a huge amount of minutes throughout the tournament, but then got a good 14-minute game again, the end against Fiji. Did well, gained a lot of confidence from that. Realised, like, you know, if you can do it against, you know, arguably the best team in the world, which is Fiji, you can kind of do it against a lot of people. So took a lot of confidence away from that. Felt like I developed a lot as a player, and then got brought to LA and Vancouver. Felt like I did well there. But again, now everyone's mindset was on the Olympics, so you just had to keep pushing as an individual and stuff. And this was probably my first stint where it was like back-to-back tournaments, and I realised how hard it is to grow as a player when you're actually performing as a player at the same time. So hard to be in the gym and honest with yourself with your running and stuff when you're playing and you're having injuries and things crop up. But yeah, so that was LA, Vancouver. I thought I did okay there. Got brought to Singapore, so I didn't get brought to Hong Kong. Got brought to Singapore. Well, it wasn't my best tournament. We did well. We finished second, which solidified us as second in the world on the overall standings. Personally, probably could have done more there. So I didn't get brought to Madrid, and then that kind of concluded my sevens journey. We moved into the Olympics. Sorry, that's the World Series. We moved into the Olympics after that, and we're obviously scrapping for positions there. Got brought to Rugby Europe in Hamburg and Croatia, which were really fun tours. Got a bit more time there. Then, you know, just low A selections fell. I missed out on Olympic selection, so I was brought to tours, which is in France, as a 15th, 16th. Hence the kit for Isaac and myself, which is always nice. Scraped in to get the gear.
Thank you for doing all that hard work for me to wear.
We get the gear. Exactly.
For me having a new training shirt.
Everyone coming over to see me when I got back, they're like, "Yeah, sending gear for me." Absolutely. And then so that kind of concluded that experience for me. That was my second year, so that was more of a performance-based year.
Yeah, cool. What was the pressure? Is it like, because like you said, building up to that Olympics, everyone's fighting for spots. You've got a squad. There's only a certain amount of numbers going. Like, is the training intensity different? Is the just vibe a bit different? Is it, because obviously, again, you're obviously there as a team. You want the team to go well, but then as an individual, you're there for a reason. You're trying to fight for that spot. Like, is there a build in intensity from going into that Olympic year? Yeah,
there is. I think you can almost separate it into two groups. The group that's already selected, based on the fact that they've been in the team for years and they're the best players in the world. And they're kind of, and then you've got more of the scrappy guys down the bottom. And I was probably playing clubland and stuff when I was in WA. I was probably normally part of the former group. You know, for UWA, I was already kind of selected before games, so I'd never have to worry. So I was kind of like, let's grow as a team. Let's keep pushing. I don't really mind who's scrapping for what jersey because I know where I'm going to be on the field. And then now suddenly you're in a different spot where you just want to be in that squad. And again, you have to find that why you're pushing yourself, even if you're not selected. And for me, like, you obviously know me. For anyone else who's known me, it's about pushing the team forward. Like, my job now is to work as hard as I can for that jersey, so that when I don't get it, the person who's in it is in the best form. He has to be better than me to be in the jersey, and hopefully that means he's good enough to compete. At the time, the goal was for them to push for a medal. So that's your role. And when you're on a team, you're going to make it sure if they're going to keep your jersey you want, they're going to have to be very good. Which they were, and all the boys who got in it. Like, I wouldn't say there was no hard selections or anything. Obviously selections were difficult, but there's no hard done by or anything. They're all very good players. So, but it is a strange mindset, I guess, when you're approaching it, and of like you want to be in that team so badly, but you also want the team to go so well. I think anyone who's played professional or elite sport can relate to that. I was going to say, I feel like it's any professional setup. It's like, sometimes even amateur setup. Like 100%. You got your guy playing frisbee on a Monday night. He's in the same mindset sometimes.
That guy's in my spot.
Exactly. That competition runs very deep.
Which is always good. I wanted to dig in a little bit more in terms of I want to probably more so in season, what does it look like? What does a training week look like? How do you guys manage the travel? and performing at the same time? Like, I'm even going to ask from an S&C perspective. Like, yeah, let's go back to October. You've obviously got, I think it's October through to March, April.
The long season, yeah. It's
Even
October
longer?
and through to May.
May, yeah.
Well, November through to May, but like our season starts in September, like our pre-season.
Pre-season games, yeah.
So the lads are coming into pre-season now.
Yeah, right, yeah, cool.
And we only finished at the end of August there. Well, sorry, the end of July.
That's a very short off-season.
Yeah, for a very long season.
Yeah.
It's a very short off-season, and then it goes through till May. So because you get so many breaks in the middle. But yeah, I guess to answer your question, it's the way the S&C run it. And again, I was only there for 2 years. So some of the lads have been there for 9. They can definitely add more information. And you see those guys, they've become so in tune with it that they almost didn't like being told too much what to do because they're all being broken away from their rhythm.
Yeah, okay.
Because like we had a new S&C come in who was really good. And they didn't, they didn't like sometimes being brought away. You could kind of feel they resisted a little bit. Yeah. Because they were so happy with what they do and so used to it. While for someone like me, I'm like, if you give me 3 reps to do, I'm doing 3 reps. If you give me 10 reps to do, I'm doing 10 reps. If you give me the exact weight to do, I'm doing that exact weight. I'm very, very regimented in how I did it. Yeah. But again, when you start bringing tour and feeling travel into that, it's so much more based on how you're feeling.
Yeah, okay. So it's very much an individual
Yes,
thing.
exactly.
Okay.
Like when, for example, I remember when we were here in Perth, like we had pre-tournament gym sessions down at Scotch College and running and stuff. I remember being in there because it was my first, one of my first tours where I was with a high-level team. Yeah. And being like, wow, we're kind of been a bit lazy in the gym. Talking to S&C about it. And he was like, it's just a feel-good session. Like half the lads just getting a pump. Yeah. It's just about getting the blood flowing, keeping yourself moving. It's not, you're no longer progressing. It's just about getting your mind right. And for some of the lads, that's doing nothing, a little bit of stretching and then moving out. Some of the lads, that's, squatting very heavy and jumping and doing all the mobility stuff. For a lot of lads, as the season progresses, it just becomes more and more and keeping themselves in one piece. Yeah. Then it does, everything else falls to the wayside. You pick your spots that are kind of falling apart and you keep that real strong. Yeah. Pre-season is just a huge amount of running and speed.
So it's like, is it just developing in that block there, putting all the work in, and then it's just a maintenance thing as you go through? Yeah. Like, is it,
Yeah, so it's like you develop as much as you can in that pre-season, and then assuming you're selected for every tour, I think it's just about maintaining that as best you can and using the little blocks you get to then build. But you're often just building back to where you were. If that makes sense. Like you're away playing, you come back in, you try and get back to where you were at the end of pre-season, and then you kind of go again. Yeah. The interesting thing about it is, as someone who's on the fringe a bit more, is you kind of don't know where you're going to be going because you don't know which tours you're on. So suddenly you're like, you've got an 8-week block here because you're not away, where you can just build really hard in the gym and running and skills. And then sometimes you'd be back-to-back tours, in which case you've got no time. Yeah. But yeah, the normal week would be, we'd have like speed and skills on a Monday. So that's like hitting top speed every, it's like days, that's the benchmark. So they have us all in GPS just 24/7. Well, not 24/7, but every time we're in session.
Sleep in that thing.
I hope it wasn't 24/7.
You probably would.
See where I'm going.
Making sure you're not training in sleep.
And then we'd have like a gym session on the Monday, just normally uppers after that. Yep. Tuesday would be a bit more like repeat speed, some more game scenario stuff, but it wouldn't be a full game, so it'd be more like a little drills and stuff like that.
So sections of the game?
Yeah, exactly. That could be like one little thing we're working on maybe. And then still quite skill heavy and quite a lot of running and repeat. And then up at lowers gym. Yep. And then Thursday would often be a double pitch session. Towards the end of the season there, or the second season, they had it in the afternoon because it mimicked our tournaments. So after you'd come in, have lunch at the high performance center, and then you'd have your one training session, speed, and then you'd have a break, and then another one which would finish off about 7:30 at night. Yeah, right. And then on Friday you'd have to be back in. We'd be back in for 7 a.m. or 7:30 on Friday because it would mimic a tournament. Yeah. Because often, like I remember the lads the first year were in LA, and because of the storms there, they finished like some ridiculous hour, like 10:30, and had to be back in at like 8 a.m. for an 8 a.m. game the next day. Yeah. So they start mimicking that one, and no matter what it was, like often you'll have a game finish at 5 o'clock. You have to be able to go home, get to sleep, and then wake up nice and early. Yeah. Which is very difficult to do. Yeah.
You see, you're just building those habits and those, I guess, like routines, or even like what's the word I'm trying to find here? Just like ways of how you'd set yourself up. Yeah. So like you do the Thursday night, and then if you couldn't get to sleep, figure out how to get.
You go and talk to nutrition, go, I need melatonin, or I need a way to lower my heart rate and stuff. And like, I mean, it's so hard on tour as well because in the training session you can kind of get away with maybe coasting a touch. Yep. But when you're smacking caffeine, getting ready for you've had 3 caffeine gums, you're ready for a nighttime game. And you play a minute and a half.
Too much.
You play a minute and a half off the bench, and you're like, I'm still so wired here. So that was always fun, trying to get to sleep, just staring at the wall. But even if you didn't have any caffeine, you'd still be so up, so amped, especially someone like me who was novel experience. Like, I don't know, going home after the Vancouver one, just being so amped.
Just don't sleep.
No, you'd just be staring at the wall, and you'd be like, okay, I have one of the biggest games of my life tomorrow. You do well. Great, I'm running on 4 hours sleep, perfect.
Did you, along your journey over the 2 years, did you pick up any techniques or anything like that to like calm nerves? If you wanted to calm nerves, like, is there any little bits and pieces like that that you found around game day or the night before?
I honestly think just experiencing it is the biggest way to bring it down. Like I remember for my first ones, there's so much nerve. And just again focusing on yourself and what you need to do rather than the outcome. Like if you do all your jobs right and you know the outcome's poor, that's fine. Like it's not, you can't control sometimes what happens in the end result. You can just control what you do. So
you'd jot down or you'd write down what you want to do.
Yeah.
And then when thoughts pop in about, oh, it's a game, it's a crowd, it's whatever, you just...
Yeah, try and just zone in on what I wanted to achieve out of that game. Yeah. And sometimes it's easier in sevens because you only have a few minutes.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can be so hard because you only get a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So just think of that.
Your whole game is based on maybe 2 involvements. Yeah. So you can come on, you can make 2 good tackles and that's it. Great, I've had a great game. You can come on, you drop 1 ball, whistle goes. That's a terrible game. So it can be so hard. While that was a big mindset change from 15s where you can spend your time working the game. You miss 2 tackles in 15s, someone else probably cleans them up about 2 minutes behind you, and then you're building your way back into the game. You're fine. While in sevens, it's like you have such a short window to make good on the game, while at the same time not overplaying your hand, not trying to be the hero, because you have guys on the field like Terry Kennedy, the best guys in the world outside you, who you need to give them the ball. You're a serviceman trying to give them the ball. So you want to show what you can do and make sure you're in a jersey, but at the same time just stick to the structure and help the team win.
Yeah. Because we were talking about that before, like you were saying about stats in terms of like passing. Like what's the standards, what's like the level of detail that's required? And I can imagine by doing, which we'll get into soon, but by playing sevens at the standards you're about to talk about and then taking that back to 15s, sure that's going to enhance your game.
I think it's all, it does. I think the mindset on sevens is like no mistakes. They kill you. Yeah. Like you lose games based on very minute mistakes.
So like passing certain sections.
Like as in, if the ball's half a metre behind someone, they're going to get cleaned up, probably turned over. If the ball's in front of them, they're going to hit it at pace and probably score.
Yeah, right.
Like it's that's how small it was. And I definitely don't say that I was the best. And if any Irish guys were listening, they're definitely going to tune in and go, make sure he's not palming himself as if his ball.
I saw his left to right.
Yeah, it's not always out in front when Connor passed it. So
Connor passed it. What?
Yeah, exactly. All of that as well. You dummy. You have a 3-on-4. If you don't recognise it, and you go. You're very isolated, because one of the massive things I thought coming in was it takes so long to get up to date with everyone's collective thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're drifting out expecting the ball and he carries, it's turnover. There's no cleaning him up.
As in, like, there's the intuition of, like, if your guy, you think he's passing, but he runs it.
Exactly.
You're 5 meters away, turnover.
Yeah. And that was something I was learning a whole 2 years, and I probably only clicked towards the end there. I wish I'd clicked a bit earlier, but like that.
Damn it.
Yeah. So you have to be working so much as a unit and all on the same page, because that was what let us down in so many games. Would be able to go, or if they want you carrying, you pass. They're right in your hip. There's 2 guys in front of them. It's such a slow ball. We're going to lose an opportunity.
I feel it's got to be the most underestimated, like, quality of a rugby player. That intuition.
Yeah, and obviously it changed with the team, and when you have a team that's been together for so long, that can be tricky as well. Trying to slot in, but it does. I'm hoping it will transfer to 15s. Obviously, the last time I played 15s was a while ago now, and I was still developing as a sevens player. I hope my mindset now, and it definitely feel like it will be, is much higher quality. I remember watching the games on the weekend, Soak's final, and kind of watching like you've got to have a higher standard than that on a few of the things that Pally were doing, a few balls to the ground, and I was like, that's a try. And I think people, as they're coming up, kind of recognise that, it was still an all right pass. It's like, but that's a try if he hits that ball correctly, and holding yourself to higher accountability. Kind of leads through.
That's the difference.
But I also think that's just Irish footy in general, which is really interesting. They have such a high bar for like no mistakes. They don't
sevens and 15s.
Both, across. Like when I was playing for Lansdowne, and even talking with lads who were playing in like the academies and stuff over there, they don't really accept any really allow mistakes over there as much as I think we do. Possibly it's just because Western Australia, the level isn't as high. But the gap's not as big as you'd think. There are a lot of very good players here. I have no doubt that our high level teams would do very well in the AIL 1A competition. The only issue is as soon as you get into our depth, we'd collapse. Like their second grade teams, their 2A teams would take our second grade, third grade teams for a walk. But our first grade teams are still at a high level, but they just don't accept mistakes. And I've thought about the reasons for that. I think the weather can probably be one. You know, once you have the ball, you need to make sure you're executing properly.
It's not 25 degrees with zero wind, no clouds.
If my brother's throwing a 20-metre out the back offload, we'll just get the ball back because they're probably going to do the same thing. But when a team's just going to wear you down through 30 phases, if you lose a ball, it's all right, now we're defending for 5 minutes rather than them just throwing it back to us.
If there's a coach listening or even like a player as well, like how did they drive those standards? So like if we're down at Clubland in Perth next year, how do we have similar standards that the Irish crew do? Is it yell at them and make them do exercise, or is it like...
I think it has to be player driven.
Yeah, okay.
When it's so hard to instill as coaches. I think when coaches try and instill it themselves on a team, it often backfires because they get a little... the best word is probably resentment from the players where they're like, you can't, like, I'm doing my best here. Mistakes are mistakes. It needs to be player driven where lads like, that's not good enough. The outcome is going to be this if we keep running this. Like, and everything needs to be to a high level. Do we do the set again? Do we like, how do they do it? Like, no, it's not always about doing the set again. It's just about talking. Yeah, probably the biggest one is recognising when it's not up to scratch. Yeah, okay. Which I think instead of like, you'll see so many backlines, like I see it a million times, where like they'll run through a groove and it's really sloppy. Yeah. People aren't running their lines right. The passes are behind people. And then they're, all right, cool, we all know the move, and they move on. And it's like, okay, you need to recognise that this isn't up to scratch before we move on. And everyone needs to know their roles. Everyone needs to get their own game right but call people out on it, not in a poor way. Yeah,
how you do it.
Yeah, but like making sure that his understanding is correct and because a lot of the time it's not a skill error, they're just moving on too quick.
Okay. That's a very valid point. Very valid point.
Yeah, I think, and then that can go across the whole team. Addressing things, not in a critiquing way, but just addressing things that aren't right at scratch instead of just blowing past them. People in the right spot, calling out individuals and like, hey, do you understand where you're meant to be and why? And then that just helps the whole team.
And just not that old school, like just put someone in a...
We're going to go through 4,000 reps of our phases up and down the field and not actually address a single individual's role. Yeah.
Or but even like the negative, like putting down or like that style of coaching where it's like 95% of the population nowadays.
That has its place when people aren't switched on and the mistakes are coming from people, not being mentally there. I think it does have its place where you kind of need to pull someone's head in and recognise when that's play. Like I've done quite a bit of coaching now with Scotch. Obviously that's school level, so it's a bit tricky. You have to be a bit more considerate with kids because they're still developing into themselves and they're still trying to understand who they are as players and as people. But then when you translate that into clubland, I think there is a time and a place for giving out, but it needs to be used probably less than it is now. It's more about
the dosing of it.
Yeah, otherwise it's like anything. You yell too much at your kid and your dog, it fades. Like everyone's had that coach who yells 4,000 times a training session and everyone just ignores it. Yeah. When you've got that coach who's really, really quiet all season and then he yells twice, everyone listens when he yells. He's got a lot more power behind his voice when he yells. Yeah. That's my 2 cents. I'm obviously not a hugely experienced coach. I've only done 3 or 4 years, so there's probably some very experienced coaches that might be listening.
But just like again, what you've seen in your time and. Again, probably I'm assuming for most people, apart from a couple of the boys that are looking for a few bits and pieces from over in Ireland, but most of the crew over here will be from Australia. So like just getting that perspective from Ireland, it's just pretty interesting. Especially again, looking both the 15s and the 7s, like their progression has been insane. Yeah. So arguably should have gone further in the 15s World Cup. Like even the boys in the Olympics, like did really well, and even the 7 series, the whole thing's been going really well. We had this conversation the other day on the golf course, most important office. We'll ignore the actual golf one. That was our original idea. Connor's original idea was a podcast on the golf course.
Yeah. What did we shoot? 2 under?
200. But 7's in WA. So how do we grow the game? How do we get it over here? How do we, have you got any ideas around it? Obviously you'd be the perfect pioneer to bring it back here.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved my time in 7s, and I think prior to anyone who doesn't know, prior to the World Series and being brought in, I hadn't played a huge amount of it, just the odd comp here and there. But I do honestly think it's such a huge part of the game that can grow involvement, particularly in a place like Western Australia, where 15s is struggling and it needs something else to help it along its way. I think 7s really fills a gap. I think it could really fill a gap in schoolboy level and in that merger to Colts and to club, as we talked about, bringing in connections between schools and clubs. So personally, I'd love to see the crop up of more organised and more, like a PSA competition or schools competition, however you would like to structure it, seven style. Yeah, okay. That from there you can build out an academy. Obviously, you've got the Olympics coming up in 2032 here as in Australia. There's no reason that Western Australia shouldn't be a powerhouse of players for sevens to be developed. Travel is such a key part of sevens, so it would be less hassle moving players over east to play in tournaments. You've got much smaller squads, so travel becomes easier. You've got all the Asian legs and stuff where players and teams can be involved. Like Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, they're all not very far from Perth. They're all very sevens centric. I'd love to see a pathway developed from school competitions into academy sevens, into a senior men's team. And then obviously that would be far outside of my scope of Western Australia, but then I'd also love to see development of competitions in Australia-wide that are sevens based and
like force reds.
Yes, exactly. Whether you have to mimic the Super Rugby system, I don't know. Maybe more something like the NRC system.
Yeah, okay,
where it's not it's not international, it's within WA, and clubs do get their own sevens together. There have been them in the past. There are still the state sevens, but I just think they could be more prominent, more known about. I think if you ask your average Rugby Joe on the street, I don't think they'd have any idea. And then I think like a lot more resources go into that. I think one of the big things they have in Ireland is they focus on sevens, and this is a little bit controversial. They do focus on sevens as a pathway for 15s. Some of the lads within sevens weren't entirely happy about that. Some of them were. Some of them have been very successful. You look at guys like Andrew Smith, Zach Ward, Jay Mullins. They've come up through the sevens program. More well known, you look at Hugo Keenan. He came through the sevens program and then shifted. He's now the Irish fullback. There's no reason that, again, we can't use sevens as another pathway to supplement our force boys, where they wouldn't have to go overseas. You develop a new style of player and give them more exposure at that level. Like I know a few lads from PSA who have been lost, and they would have been perfect for sevens. I mean, Brad Avery is one who I coached at school. He moved to league. I think he would have been an amazing sevens player. He's very good at beating players. I know a few other lads. I think it would give them really good exposure at a high level without damaging them, without losing them from the game, and by able to keep them contracted within a Force or a Reds or a Queensland or a WA. Right. How that's gone about, again, it might be outside my scope, but I think the best way to do it is start at schoolboy level, start at junior club level, establish those competitions, establish more structured competitions going forward at clubland, affiliated with the clubs, do that nationally, have them build into state teams that are more well recognised, that are Force-esque, Reds-esque, Brumbies-esque, and then they play against each other, obviously heavily televised, and then suddenly you've got a nice pathway moving into the Australian sevens, which is, I think, such a high pinnacle and has a lot more attention now, and there's absolutely no reason that this should be just male. I mean, I think the women's sevens
they've Australia, been incredible.
They're becoming superstars, and you look at the same in America, and the most followed rugby player in the world alone Amar at the moment. So there's no reason that this is no huge building block for women's rugby and women's sevens as well. So I don't know. I think it's such a pathway. How it should be exploited, I don't have all the details, but again, I think it'd be great going forward.
It's a really good idea. Especially, I think from that standpoint you're talking about, where like it's a required pathway into 15. Sorry, like that skill set that you need for the sport. And then I think of like New Zealand rugby as like one of the pinnacles of skill sets in terms of like their ability to move the ball, etc., etc. That could be one pathway where we can start to push to that pace and push to that skill set. And that, I think that's an incredible idea. Like you said, like building a school system, because that's where, again, most kids are picking their sports and they're trying and testing everything that they want to do, soccer, AFL, rugby, finding that sport where it's like 14 minutes at a time, it's less demanding on the body, you're less getting bashed, you get to run, score more tries, everything like that.
And so much less structured, so much less specialised.
I
think like there are people who fall out of the love of the game of rugby when they hit professional level because of how specialised it becomes. I won't name any names, but there are people who are in that halfback position or that prop position or whatever. They get kind of locked in when they get to like first grade level, and all they do is that one thing. All you need to do as a halfback is throw 1,000 passes a day, instead of sevens where you get to play so many more aspects of the game. And then, as you said, for juniors, that's incredible because that builds that love of the game, getting that ball in space, being able to play.
And it's fun not getting beaten up and scoring more tries.
Yeah,
There's nothing more fun than that.
Seems like a win-win, except for getting burned occasionally, which I'd like to say never happened to me, but I'd be lying through my teeth.
Yeah, cool. I reckon that it's a big piece, and hopefully something can come out of that over the long term. Because I think WA could do with a sevens team, like a sevens pathway. We didn't really want to touch on it, but I wouldn't. Obviously, you're okay with it in terms of touching on the Olympics.
Yep.
And kind of just like wrapping up your story in terms of pathway all the way through. So like, what was that like in terms of getting like the build up to Olympic selection, everything like that?
I mean, it was obviously disappointing to not be selected, and it's probably something I'm still digesting. I don't think I'm someone who would ever blame anyone but themselves. There was no coaching, bias or anything. The players who were selected were the best players, and they're all, exceptional in what they do, and they all brought something new to the game. That doesn't mean it isn't still disappointing.
Absolutely.
Having such a goal that you've missed. So, I guess it was such a good experience. I knew after I got selected, I knew that I just wanted to take away what I could from the experience, which was just being involved. Again, I knew my role was to push those guys while they were in training camp, not let them get complacent with their selection, bring a bit of fun to it, and keep.
So you're still in that training squad and everything.
So I'm in that squad. I went to France, so we're in the build up now. Obviously, trying to get everyone as fit as possible, make sure everyone's as healthy as possible. There are a number of injuries people were dealing with, so trying to keep everyone healthy was a big part. Trying to just make sure. I think keeping everyone ready to, like their mindset ready to play was a big one. You obviously don't want to play the game too early. You hear that all the way down to, when you're having a under-14s grand final. You don't want to play the game the night before. I mean, you've been building for the Olympics for 365 days. It's pretty easy, I think, to play the game a bit early. Yep. Again, I'm not the best person to talk about this because I had a different mindset, which was I just need to do what I can to be involved with this squad and take away every moment that I get to be involved in it. Yep. So we went to France 2 weeks before, so 2 weeks in a place called Tours, which was amazing. That was where the Irish 15s were based for the World Cup. We were in a really nice hotel. The Australians were there, the Uruguayans were there. So we played against them in a number of training games. We were training with each other. The standards obviously very high. Everyone's holding each other to account, like I mentioned earlier. So that's a really interesting part to be around and a cool thing to see. It's just how high the standard can get and just not accepting mistakes, while at the same time kind of not giving people the yips when they do make an error, because everyone's so mentally invested. So you don't want to call people out too much, but at the same time you need to call out anything that's going wrong. So it's a fine balance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
So I was obviously more of a witness to that and holding tackle bags and training against the guys, but still getting good runs against Australia and a good run against Uruguay and stuff, which was fun. And still being at that highest level. So I was really glad I got selected to go to France, because in that 16, it meant I got to see what the highest level was like, even if I didn't get to play in that Olympics. I definitely look at it, and there wasn't a huge amount, I don't think, in selection. I don't think I missed by a huge amount. There was experience.
Controlled all your controllables that you can.
Yeah. I think it probably goes back to early in the year. Some of those fits really didn't help me start off on the right foot. But there was also like lads who were picked had been in the team for years, and they were all very experienced. They had more experience than I did. I don't know if I could have done more to displace them.
It's a good test of character in terms of to be in that position, and then to have that team first mentality and do what you need to do to make sure the whole squad, because those scenarios will pop up a fair bit. In terms of, like, I again had one of our boys happen this last couple of weeks, and that was that thought process is just go in, keep doing your job, keep looking after the team, etc., etc.
I think it helps when you get told a bit earlier as well. Like you get told weeks out that you won't be involved in that in the 14 who get to play in the Olympics. Which you get a little bit of time to digest it and kind of what's my mindset now going forward. I pushed. You don't know if you're a part of that 15, 16 who are reserves, so I pushed hard to make that. Kept training hard, got selected in that, which was nice, and then got to go to the team. But like I idolise so many of those guys in the Irish team, like as players. I think they're all exceptional. A few of them, absolute rugby heroes of mine.
Yeah, stacked. Yeah.
So being able to watch them play and being involved in that was very cool. And again, I guess that was a mindset shift early in the year. Having those guys on a pedestal, I think, probably hurt me a little bit. Sometimes at training and stuff, because you'd always look up and you'd see them and you'd be like, crap, these guys are pretty cool. And then you do have to change that mindset of, all right, no, I need to compete with you guys. I need to take you off that pedestal. Something when they went to the Olympics, I probably put them back up. Because I wasn't competing with them as much. I was there as a support role. But But yeah, no, an awesome experience, really cool to do. Still digesting it, but I think looking back, it makes it's growing in my mind. It's such a cool experience, and I'm glad in that second year, I think I made a lot of close friends with a lot of those guys. Like I'm still in contact with them. Looking forward to seeing them when they come out in January. Yeah. On the other side of the fence, on the warm side of the fence. Yeah. The boots will be in the car, so if,
just in case.
If anyone needs a rest, I'll throw them on. Probably play out of my skin because I wouldn't really mind.
Yeah, literally. Didn't think about it.
Be relaxed, like
last minute.
2 minutes off the bench.
But yeah, just obviously incredible. Like again, if we can look from that point, look back to even just the last 2 years, like what a roller coaster. Yeah. Over 2 years, from an ACL through to moving over to Ireland, through to playing the World Series, through to like all the Olympic stuff, everything like that. Like it's pretty crazy how quickly it's gone. Yeah. But then it kind of like rolls you into like your next chapter. Yeah. What you're doing next. So obviously you've returned to WA. Yeah. You've gone back studying. And then what's next for you?
Yeah, so my decision to return was like after the Olympics. Obviously, I was pretty disappointed, but there was an opportunity to stay. I was offered another contract, and I decided not to pursue it, at least for this year. So I've left the door open to return for next year. Yeah. But I just, as I said, I went over there kind of a goal of getting out of my skin, testing myself against some other people around the world. And then after the Olympics, I probably lost my why a little bit. I didn't know why I was doing another year. So I kind of needed to come back, and the goal was to kind of regather that. Yeah. So I'm back studying. I've been studying while I've been away, and I'm definitely studying now while I'm still training at a high level. So if anyone had any questions about being a student athlete or anything, always happy to answer them. But that's always quite tricky. So now I'm back studying and training at the same time.
You're studying law?
Yeah. So I'm a second year Juris Doctor. Yeah. So that's interesting. It's good, but it's difficult. But I think that was one thing while I was away. It was quite tricky. It's like when you only have rugby and you're used to having both, it becomes a bit strange sometimes. Yeah. Okay. But no, so back now. Next chapter, I'm not really sure. I've got. I'm looking to get back into 15s, so I'm definitely going to play next season.
In WA?
In Western Australia,
The big question.
Yeah. We'll leave that one for now.
That's for the next podcast.
Yeah. Leave it at the end, make people listen all the way through. Should have said at the start, and he's going to...
No, that's the fish bait for the start of the podcast. Connor is playing.
Dot. And then, looking to play 15s, play with my mates back here, get back into some love of the game. And then I think Jack said it really well at the end of his one, just what will come, will come. Finish some study, get back in touch with my mates who are here and fall back in love with Perth. And if a cool opportunity crops up, And
how old are you now?
Just turned 24.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So I've got time, and I put those skills back into practice here. Yeah. I think we were talking about it the other day, like your training has evolved so much. You used to have to take like hours and hours to get to high intensity, and now I can smash it out. Like you just get to a point where you can train at such a high level, it doesn't take much time.
You're at a good position in your career where it's like the dose you need. Again, you're already someone that's been training well and training intelligent for a long time, but the dose you need is minimal, so you can put so much more time into other aspects.
Yeah. And then what will come will come. So just looking forward to next year and playing some footy with my mates. And then if something crops up, then I'd love to see it go through, keep travelling around the world, and use what I can. If that means going back to Ireland, then great. If it means going somewhere else, then we'll see what happens.
Could be a sequel after this podcast.
In 4 years' time.
Literally. See what happens. All right, we've gone running for an hour and 15.
Yeah, I was aware of that. People listening to my voice for too long. I definitely won't be listening to this.
If you're still here.
Anyways,
but I thought we'd finish off with just a couple of the questions that the guys asked. I'm just wary of, again, we've got this pass option where we can...
I think some of these got cold. Thanks. Shout out to Ed Kelly and the other boys.
What do we got here? Why not that one?
I think this is all right. We're an hour 15, so no one's listening anymore. It's perfect.
How was his time playing with Lansdowne?
It was great. Yeah, I love Lansdowne as a club. We didn't have the best season when I was there.
What div is that in the respect?
1A.
Okay, yeah, wow.
So they're a very highly respected club. They've been there for ages. They're right next to Aviva Stadium, for anyone who knows the old Lansdowne Road. They've got a lot of culture there. They really took care of me when I first rocked up. I was actually living on Lansdowne Road. So I had no intention of kind of playing 15s. But then I talked to the coach and he was like, you're probably not going to be on tour for the first few. So I was like, perfect. So walked down the road and they were like, we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
They were, what position are you? I was like, yeah, 12 and 7. And they looked me up and down and went, all right, 12 it is. So, yeah, I loved my time there. It was a lot of fun. Developed a lot as a player because it's very different than here. Less running footy, more controlled.
Yeah.
Got to play with some like the Leinster guys who are amazing, really good players and learn from them. Different style of footy. That was good.
Yeah, cool. How'd you get the nickname Connie Bravo?
So anyone who
Can we ask this?
Yeah, no, that one's fine. Anyone who knows the cartoon Johnny Bravo, will know the big blonde guy, hey sexy mama. So there's a good photo of me looking like him.
That can be the cover photo of the podcast.
Yeah, it can be a picture of Johnny Bravo. So yeah, that one stuck. That was in Dubai.
We'll go 3 more. I'll go, how did you find the high performance centre in Ireland? That's it. I want to ask that question as well.
Yeah, it was great. I remember rocking up and that blew me away. Well, the first thing was I remember rocking up to it and it was raining. Yeah, as it does for the first 2 days I'd been there, and they had the big indoor field, and I was thank God.
Oh yeah.
So that didn't mean it didn't get cold in there, but it meant you were out of the rain.
Get to control the thermostat.
No, it's still chilly in there, but it was out of the rain. And then they have all the gym set up. You know, got all your coffee given to you, you get all your food given to you, you get your ice bath there, your jacuzzi there, your normal techs are present, your physios, available. So having constant access to that means you can perform at a high level. Yeah, and you can also gain an understanding of what you need and what you don't, because everyone's a little bit different. Yeah, I think having it all available is really interesting because you kind of build, like a lot of players won't use your ice bath. They don't need it. Okay. And then I used it all the time, and I found it really helpful, like that contrast, and something you bring back here, and you kind of pick and choose what you need. Now you don't need everything. You know, as a player, what you require. Yeah. But no, the high performance centre is amazing, and the 15s when they come in, I mean, they push us out a little bit when they come in because they're
priorities.
They're the main team, yeah. But the fact that they're using it and they're arguably the best team in the world or second best team in the world shows how good the facilities are there. Yeah,
it'd be a pretty cool feeling to know that you've got everything. Yeah, it's just up to you now. Like, yeah, exactly. One of those things where I guess if you've got all the tools at your disposal.
Yeah, no, there's no blaming anyone else.
Yeah. Who was faster, Conor O'Sullivan or Sean Galvin?
It depends how long.
Have we got the stats on this?
Yeah, I think it's.
We got the GPS numbers.
I think it's definitely going to be Sean Galvin. He's the winger for Lansdowne. He played in my first year. Yeah. No, Shawnee, you'll take me on that one.
11 metres per second.
Yeah, I think maybe I can get him on a 3K.
He's finally slowing down. Yeah, I got him.
I'll catch him back up. Probably not, actually.
And we'll finish with the clickbait. Who are you playing rugby for next year?
We hit a pass button on that one.
Pass.
We hit a pass button on that one. I got a few. If anyone's still listening now, you probably deserve an answer. You can,
but you're not getting it.
After an hour and 20 minutes, I'll let you know.
Sweet. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for coming on. I think you got a pretty incredible story. I'm really keen to watch in terms of that sevens pathway, especially in WA, and if there's any work there, and again, you're trying to get stuck into that kind of side of things and make a bit of a difference there. So I'm excited to see where that goes, but thanks for coming on.
No worries, thank you, Isaac. You've been a huge part of that role before. I'll give you a little plug at the end. Anyone who's still listening is definitely...
Turn it off.
It's preaching to the converted here. But no, performers are huge for me, like coming back from the knee and then that little off-season in the middle and then just having someone to bounce back on. Like this has always felt kind of like home base. Yeah. Ever since I did my knee, where I was like, all right, I'm away, I'm kind of on camp, you're on tour, you're on deployment, and then you come back here and reset and go. And then this is the 3rd time I've been back. Yeah. And it's kind of like, all right, now I get to reset again and then start the next leg. So for anyone who's looking to do the same thing, couldn't recommend it more.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that plug.
That's the plug. That's
1 hour 17.
Yeah, at the very end. Anyone who's still listening is like, I wasn't convinced for the first hour and 15 minutes.
Now you got me.
Now you're convinced.
You can inquire via the link in the bio. All right, thanks guys.